I grew up in a home that was very Christian. I grew up playing lots of sports. Sports became my life, and my dad was always my coach. Ended up getting a basketball scholarship. At 18, I went off to college and played basketball. And then on January 20th of 2000, my life got flipped upside down. At noon, we reported to the gym, and my coach was just acting really funny. He ended up asking me if I would not go to class at 1 o'clock and if I would stay and just talk with him. And I did not want to get in trouble, so I said, absolutely not. If you want to talk to me, come get me out of class. So I went on to class, and they took the roll, and I remember he poked his head in as soon as they said my name, and he said it needed me to come with him. So we walked into the gym, opened his office door, and I saw my mom. And as I continued to open the door, I saw my brother, and then I saw my mom's best friend, and then I looked behind the door and I saw my preacher. And it's never good when the preacher shows up outside of church. My dad had been a state trooper for 29 years and had recently retired, so the thought of death really wasn't a threat anymore because he was out of the line of business. The smile on my mom's face kind of said it all. And I remember looking up and saying, is he in the hospital or is he dead? And she couldn't say anything, and everybody just was crying. At 18, I just don't think a child knows how to deal with something like that, especially when it's your very first experience of death. I just kind of put my guard up immediately and decided to continue and stay to play in my ball game that night. Went through the funeral. I don't really remember any of it. I know I gave his eulogy, and I don't remember it. I don't quite know how I got through it, but I do know that I never really lost faith in God at that moment. I transferred to Georgetown, and a high school boyfriend of mine that I had dated, we broke up when I went to college, decided we were gonna probably try again. And after we had the talk a week later, he was in a very bad car accident and was put on life support for 2 days and did not make it out of that. So in January, my dad died, and in May, my ex-boyfriend had died. I remember almost a year to my dad's death. On that anniversary, we found out that my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. In 1 year, I had gone through every kind of emotion possible from 18 to 19 years old, and I gave up. I was done. I just quit everything. I quit sports. I didn't have any really big will to live, but I knew that that was wrong. And so I just stuck it out. I kept living. Can't tell you hardly anything that happened in about 5 years after all that. As much as I grew up loving God and always having faith in God, I was very angry at God. In those 7 years that all of this had taken place, I'd never once gone to church. It was too hard to walk in to my childhood church. Every time I did, I saw my dad's casket. It wasn't safe. I was still so angry. So I hadn't stepped foot in church in 7 years. Around 2006, I met my husband. We started dating. We had been friends for a long time, but it switched into a different role, and we got engaged and we got married. We had a baby in 2007, and it was not until she began to ask more about my dad that I started to talk about heaven, because I wanted her to know the greatest man that I had ever known. And so we talked about heaven, and that's when I started realizing that God's not bad, and it wasn't his fault. And so heaven became something happy to talk about again. She needed to know Jesus. She needed to know God, and that he loved her, and that he loved me. And as angry as I had been at him for all those years, I knew it was time that for her, she had to see how good he was, because I grew up knowing how great he was. I knew I wanted to go back to church. I just didn't know how, and I didn't think I was ready. So I got involved in lily bugs and surrounded myself with women who, me being around them made me feel just that tad bit closer to God. I would work one shift, but I'd stay all night. And because I couldn't go to church, that was the closest I could get. I got a group message on Facebook inviting me to a Bible study from Melissa Miller, and I did not respond. I would think I was the only one not to respond, because after 1,000 messages, it was a constant reminder of, do you want to go to Bible study? Do you want to come to Bible study? And I will never forget that I said to myself, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. It'll be on a day when I can come. I can't say no to it if it's meant to be. And they decided that the day that it was going to be was on Thursdays in the evening, which that would not have worked for me. I work late on the evenings and Thursdays. I wrote back, I will not be able to make it. I work late on Thursdays. Thanks for the invite. And then just a few days later, Melissa's son got his soccer schedule and had changed it to Sunday evenings. And there was no conflict, and it was the day that I had to go. So I said, I don't know if I can do it yet. My salon was doing a booth at the event. So I came, I set up, we did the thing. I had actually no idea that this was gonna have anything to do with Christianity and God and all that lovely stuff, and until the very end when the women's share part happened. And it was the first time that I actually felt like I hadn't been the only person hurting for that long. I remember we packed up the booth and we went out and we're taking things out to our cars. And as I came in, Melissa was sitting on the side of the stage and she said, "Hey, Brooke, come here." And so I walked over and she said, "Pray with me." I don't remember a word she said, but I think I needed it more than I've needed anything in a really long time. And when we got done with the prayer, I looked at her and said, "I'll see you at Bible study." And then I knew if I was starting Bible study, it was time to start church. So after 14 years, I went with my best friend to church at the end of the year, last year. And I continue to go, and I continue to take my child and take my son also, and we enjoy it, and I love it just like I loved it years ago. And I am so thankful for the road that God put me down so I could find being thankful in all things. And I'm thankful for Him because He has made me a better person.